Well. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Dr. Unati here, your host. I am super excited to host this very first show. It is called Dr. M Health Corner Talk Show. Today, we're going to actually talk about something that is very close to my heart. I see all these issues every day at my practice, so I felt this is the best time to discuss an issue like this. Before I do that, I just want to give you a background of what this show is about. This show is about bringing thought leaders in healthcare to come and discuss in their expertise. Basically, we want to bring all this awareness. As you know, with all the COVID-19, things have affected people exponentially. So today I felt it was amazing for me to bring this wonderful panel to you to take us through the topic of today. So I'm excited to introduce our two guests, and the third guest will be joining us soon. To my right, actually, it is my wonderful friend, Wendy Ryasin. Wendy is actually a provisional psychologist. She's an executive director of a company in Edmonton. We are in Canada. It is Edmonton. Wendy, let me just rather read your CV. Wendy has MA Counseling Psychology. She's a registered provisional psychologist. She lives with her hubby of 42 years. Wow, Wendy. And have 3 dogs, 2 cats. They have 3 grown children, 2 boys and a girl. Wendy has over 20 years of experience as a counselor in private practice and has several social service agencies, management and leadership positions in the past, had that. Prior to entering the mental health field, Wendy's background was in business and financial management. Thank you so much, Wendy, for joining us. Wendy is currently an executive director of the Edmonton Violence Prevention Center for the past 6 years and is responsible for overseeing the agency's domestic violence treatment services. She's also a group facilitator and provides one-on-one couples sessions. Thank you so much, Wendy. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So long. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And next to Wendy is my lovely colleague, Dr. Sola Oluwakere. He is a psychiatrist in the UK and Nigeria. He's amazing. I work with Dr. Sola a lot. Insights Limited. They basically deal programs. If you are looking,
it seems your internet is a bit.
Welcome, Wendy and Dr. Sola.
All right, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited. It's 3 minutes past 12 in the UK, and I'm staying up for this just to be part of this wonderful day. I know it's the beginning of good and beautiful things on your show, so I'm excited to be part of it.
Thank you so much. There's Miguel. Thank you so much, Miguel, for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Sola. Miguel, I'm going to quickly introduce you. We're just starting. Miguel is Mr. Miguel Olave. He is one new friend I found on LinkedIn. The one thing I like about Miguel is he's a man who's standing up for other men. He's coming here to represent other men to speak openly about mental health. Thank you so much for doing that. I'll quickly read your short bio here. I know you summarized all your great bio here. He's the founder of Olave, a LinkedIn consulting company. He basically supports businesses and executives to leverage their personal brands and to increase their clientele. Right here on LinkedIn. He has 10-year experience in sales. Thank you so much for doing that. We need that, Miguel, and it needs skills. Thank you so much. And he's actually a dad, and I see that he is a follower of Christ. I am too. Thank you so much. I'm excited to introduce our today's topic. Today, our topic is depression in men. And I think it's important for us to discuss this very important topic. As we all know, we are faced with a pandemic. We never saw it coming, and it's affecting men exponentially. Today, we're going to take a deep dive on this topic because in my practice, I'm starting to see a lot of men coming in complaining about they're struggling with their mental health. They're struggling with a little bit of drinking a little bit more. They are doing a little bit more drugs. Some of them they never did in the past. And we cannot underestimate the fact that there's also domestic violence. So I'm so grateful to bring Wendy to help us to see how we can help our men. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Today we're going to start with you, Miguel. I know that you're doing something amazing. A lot of times, men, they're scared to talk about their emotions. They're scared to show their vulnerability. And here you are. You decided to speak up and you decided to be this representative. And I see your work on LinkedIn. I see how brave you are, because it is brave for you to speak up. And I think you're going to change the course of mental health, basically inside after this discussion. So tell us about your story. How did you decide to come out? I'll put it that way, because a lot of men are scared to talk about it. In my practice, and probably Dr. Sola and Wendy will agree with me, that we see men after probably a year minimum of struggling. And you decided you wanted to come up here and share your story and motivate other men. How did it start with you?
Yeah, Dr. Unati, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and with everybody else, thank you for having this space with us. It's just it's something that's been a long time coming. I'll be honest. My story starts in 2009. As a teenager, I was 17 years old, and at that point in high school, you're at like your height of masculinity. You're butting heads with everybody. You're trying to be the alpha male, and at that point in my life, I had actually had attempted to take my life in 2009. And it just goes to show you how much men will do whatever it takes to hold it in even then. And so I was forced to really open up a little bit more than I wanted to in 2016. So 2009 that happened, and then comes 2016. That whole time I didn't really seek the mental health care that I needed. I didn't even know what mental health care was. And also, again, I was a man. I wasn't struggling. I was going to figure it out. I was also, I started to become a father. I started to have boys. I, got married, and now I've got 4 boys. But comes 2016 again, just it's a testament to how long and how much men will endure, and
Yes.
high in silence, because although what had happened at that time that I had planned to do that, what had happened instead, we talked about God. I'm very spiritual. I wasn't at that point. I declared myself an atheist, and I ended up at a church where the pastor walked up to me, put his hands on my shoulders, and he was like, "Miguel, I needed you to tell you, God needed me to tell you that you're supposed to be here right now." And so I was open with the church people. I was open with my pastor, at that point, after, got to know him and everybody in the church, but I wasn't open with, my friends or, my colleagues at work. And so again, all that time I was struggling 2009 to 2016 still, because I didn't know what was going on. And then at the height of my sales career, I lost it all. I was forced to, to come up and say what was going on. In the middle of work, I was starting to have, panic attacks and trauma, flashbacks, and I was having nightmares. I wasn't sleeping. Come to find out, I was diagnosed with PTSD that stemmed from childhood abuse that I had forgot about. Like my mind blacked it out. For when I was 9 years old is when that happened. Guess what happened in 2016 though? My son was turning 9 years old as well. And so, no wonder that came up. I didn't know it subconsciously. I didn't know what was going on. And it forced me again. I had that breakdown, and after 2009, God had put in my spirit that I needed to talk about it, but I didn't understand it. I didn't know what mental health was. And, you know, come 2016, it was, you know, fire again. And, you know, I was led to LinkedIn. It's a platform full of change makers, decision makers, people that can really enact change, because business sets the tone for culture, for society, for so much of our life, you know? And so why not go on a platform where if I can touch one or two executives, maybe, you know, they lead a couple hundred people, you know, they go into their worlds, and, you know, it's like a trickle down effect, a domino effect. And, you know, kind of creating change from the top down. And so, you know, for me, it's a bigger purpose. You know, like we spoke, it took a lot for me to get there, but I did it with fear. I didn't, you know, I didn't like wait till, so often we like want to get rid of this fear before we do something, but it's about doing things with fear. You know, I was fearful of, I lost my job. I didn't have a college degree. I had a family to support. You know, putting myself out there on social media, on a platform of business people, my potential future clients, you know, potential future employers, you know, it's not something, I was fearful of what that was going to do, close even more doors as a minority, you know. And so, but I did it through the fear. I did it, you know,
you did it scared.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's my story, you know, and here I am, you know, almost 3 years later, and it's just been crazy, you know, what vulnerability will do. I don't sell myself. I don't run ads for a business. People come and ask me, Miguel, will you do this for me? Can I hire you for this? Because people know who I am. I've built a community now, off of who I am, not what I do. So people know who I am. People trust me. People believe in me, and you know, and that creates so that's what I help people do now. But yeah, I'm so excited to be here and hear everybody else's story, and thank you for creating this space, because people need this space. People need hope. People need to see somebody out there, you know, that's, man, like maybe
living the experience, Miguel. Yes.
I'm excited to be here, and thank you for letting me share.
Absolutely. You know what, Miguel? It's amazing because I see the attraction you have on your platform and amazing people. And life is just about that, because there's something we have learned as we grow. We adapt to this fake presentation we have in the world, and we learn it doesn't matter where you come from. I always say it doesn't matter what position you have in the world, because the issue is we are still humans. And I always say there's that little boy or that little girl that is crying to come out, actually, or to come out and heal. And that's what you did for yourself. It's a journey. Thank you so much. And you know what? Before you actually go further about your child at 9 and triggered something about your old 9-year self, I'm going to actually let Dr. Sola kick in and tell us more, because truly you talked about your PTSD. There was something more that was happening in your life. Dr. Sola, do you want to take us through what was going on there with Olave, Mr. Olave? Because it looks like there was some struggle he carried from that age. He was 9, suppressed it. Wendy is going to tell us soon here, suppressed that trauma, and then it kicks in when his son is 9, and it takes him back to his stories. Wow. Dr. Sola, tell us what is going on here.
Well, Olav, you've inspired me tonight. As in, if I've not gained anything from this show, just listening to your story alone has sparked something new in me today. And I'm really proud of you, and you need to be extremely proud of what you've achieved so far. And kudos to you. And I'm really proud of you, man. For you to be able to speak about it, to be able to encourage people, I think that is phenomenal. And for me, this is typical of what we see in clinical practice. People, sorry to use the word, like suffering in silence over the years. As in, if you look at it from 2009 to 2016, 7 whole years, you were experiencing various types of emotions that you couldn't just come around to identifying and labeling these emotions until a major breakdown was going to happen again, you know. So that is why this kind of forum is very, very important, to encourage men. And I can't Thank you enough for speaking up and sharing your experience. I'm sure this will encourage someone who might be listening to us that yes, there is hope, there is help, and this platform is a safe space for people to talk. Typically, people who have experienced similar symptoms, trauma, one form of the abuse or other due to inequalities or various kind of stuff stemming from background could present with similar symptoms, and it could lead them to PTSD or depression like we're discussing today. And typical symptoms that they could present with could be low mood, persistent low mood, or anhedonia, what we call anhedonia, lack of interest. You're not just doing what you enjoying what you normally do. So those are two core symptoms, but duration is very, very important as well. When these begin to last for a period of 2 weeks or more, then it falls into the realms of depression. But then we have the other associated symptoms as well, which is the poor appetite, the poor sleep, the fatigue, and the all works leading to feeling suicidal. And you did also share that you at some point had contemplated ending your life. That must have been something very, very difficult for you to say. And I think I saw you were you were a bit emotional when you were actually recounting that experience. So I think if not anything, anyone listening to us should be encouraged to speak out. They can look at your life and look at it as an example. But the key thing here is that they don't have to wait that 7 years to seek help. This platform is a safe space, and we just need to encourage them. And we can go on and talk about in clinical practice. This is just typical. Men just delay and delay and delay and delay. They want to be the alpha male. They want to be the strong one. They want to be the one being there for others, while they neglect their own well-being. And maybe depending on your background as well, culturally, I'm from Nigeria. We don't talk about our emotions. We're not brought up that way to speak about the way we feel. And that impacts the time at which we present. So most times it gets to the time whereby guys are in crisis and then they are suicidal or they've turned to drugs or things like that. So it is very, 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 very important. And as the show goes on, I hope I have the opportunity to talk more about options in terms of treatment, which psychology is very important. I'm keen to hear what Wendy is going to teach me. I'm going to learn from you psychologically, and I'm going to learn how to keep a marriage for 40 years.
Yes, I know, right? She's amazing. She's amazing.
That's
Wendy, I like what you actually bring to the table in terms of the background of man you see presenting. Wendy has quite unique work. She deals with the perpetrators, because we all know that men, they tend to present somehow differently compared to the counterpart. There's a lot of anger. Wendy, do you want to share what are you seeing in your practice? And honestly, tell us, is there any insight? Can they connect the dots?
First of all, I appreciate what both of you have said, and particularly Miguel, you coming forward and speaking about this is so important, because unfortunately there is still that belief that somehow depression is weakness. Depression means you're not a strong person. And so I think men feel the weight of that more than women do. And I think it's more acceptable for women to be depressed than men. And so it delays that coming forward. And I think the men that we see, we treat men and women, but the men that we see coming through our treatment, they are, a lot of them are depressed. And sometimes, particularly with this COVID situation, they're very isolated. A lot of them have felt like they're the breadwinner and maybe both work, but they've lost their job. There's all of these things that kind of combine, and it may be expressed in anger. Like you said, Unati, men will often express it with anger as opposed to, say, crying, right? Yes. Because they may not show that emotional part of them, but and I think that gets missed a lot.
Exactly.
And it's, and sometimes it's a little harder to uncover. And because of the fact that it's not those other symptoms that Dr. Sola mentioned, it's anger. And that feels more powerful. Yes. Crying feels like weakness. Yes. So it tends to come out that way. So it takes a little bit of digging to kind of verify the other symptoms, that kind of thing, to make sure that it actually is, Is it something new? Have they had anger issues for a long time? There's trauma probably involved in that. But depression is in a lot of our clients, and a lot come, by the time they get to see us, they're quite suicidal.
True. You know what? When I was I'm very much interested in the history of inherited trauma, the inherited family trauma. You mentioned, Miguel, about your son presenting at 9 when he was 9, you felt the emotion. It took you back to your story when you were 9. You see how unfortunately trauma, when it's embedded, I always say the seeds of trauma, they don't get buried. It's just abandoned. They are just sitting there and they are ready to explode when there's triggers. And then things like the birth of your child. Now he's 9, takes you back to your story because you're probably fearful. I hope this doesn't happen to my child. So now you live with fear, and the studies show that even that fear could actually transfer to your child. So I'm so grateful you are attended to this. I'm really grateful. You know what, Dr. Sola, do you want to take us back to what are the causes of depression? Because we're talking about trauma. Do we have other symptoms? Other causes of depression?
Right. Dr. Nati, this is one of my favorite things to talk about. And there's no way I'm going to talk about this without talking about my famous biopsychosocial model principle that we try to use to explain this development of this. There's the biological factors where you talk about the genetics and makeups and imbalance of chemicals, neurotransmitter likes, stuff like that. And then the social factors there, which and psychological factors where you have significant life events that people have been through, like trauma, which is very, very significant. It is very, 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 very significant because once these things, if they're not dealt with at the early stages, we all know what it could happen in future. Because you did use one word there when you were talking about, you said you blanked it out, you blocked it out, but you only blocked it out. That was just a temporary solution. It wasn't a solution. It was going to always catch up with you at some point. It was always going to affect your day-to-day living at some point, even subconsciously. You didn't know, but it was when it was 9, your son was going to be 9 years, it came back. So all these things are what we could call predisposing factors, and they all come together, and then individual can then present in various ways, such as low mood, lack of interest, and things like that. So it is very, very important that anybody that could be listening to us, that it is multifactorial of all these causes, and you can't look at one part without looking at the others. There are roles of illicit substances there, and bringing inequalities, ability to cope with life as itself, because in life there will be ups and downs, there will be job losses, there will be relationship breakdown, there will be pandemics like we're going through. So all these things contribute to how we'll feel, think, or behave. This is what the concept of all these our psychological models try to use in managing depression. So those are the causes that we could highlight, and I can't highlight this enough that if anybody is listening to us, please speak up. Do not suffer in silence. We are changing the rhetoric. We are trying to eradicate the stigma. It is not a sign of weakness to speak up. I was looking at a bit of statistics before we started, and I saw that it is ratio 5:2, 5 female to 2 male. But if you look at suicide now, you see that is more in the males, you see. So because they wait till it becomes a huge problem, and they can't just come round dealing with it. And then unfortunately, and if you look at a bit of statistics in terms of suicide and people attempting every 40 seconds there's an attempt. And I was reading the other day that for every completed suicide, about 150 people could be affected in terms of friends, relatives, colleagues, as in the network. And I just sit back and relax that could someone have picked up a symptom to say, is this guy feeling low, or is it behaving in a way that is not usual, and could help being given to the person at that time? It all goes to the point that we all have a role to play, a significant role to play in looking after each other and encouraging each other to speak up, be kind, and give people hope.
I love it. Thank you so much, Dr. Sola. Thank you so much. Mouthful. Wendy,
Yes, dear.
I know that a lot of times people think it happened to me. There's nothing I can do about it. It still hurts. Can you take us through how can people heal
From trauma?
from trauma?
Yeah, what we do, because we are looking at domestic violence, is we're not an anger management program. We're actually a program that, like, we want to find out what the source of anger is. And a lot of times through a process, guys, men that have never even realized, even like you, Miguel, couldn't remember anything, will suddenly get that trigger or that memory back, or suddenly admit it. And that beginning to talk about it, beginning to work through what's happened. There's forgiveness. There's a lot of different steps to it, depending on what the person has already done in their life. Some may have done nothing, and they need to be heard and validated for what they're going through and what they're feeling, and not made to feel as if there's something wrong with them. It's something that was done to them. It's nothing wrong with them. And so working on those types of issues. But I find forgiveness a big part of healing from trauma. A lot of the different types of interventions that we can do, we use. I don't know if you wanted me to go into any of that, but the first step is admitting that there is something. And with our population, that is part of what we're trying to do with treatment, is to look beyond. So you got anger. Anger is a symptom of what? And that's where depression gets uncovered. That's where the trauma gets uncovered, if it's there. And some of it's just skills, just learning new skills of handling stress, handling and to improve their life, and making those small goals and those small steps forward.
Love it. I would like to know, Miguel, how did your journey of healing start? I'm not going to ask you to go deep into the story of what happened to you, but to where you are right now, I see a positive man who speaks vulnerably. This story, like, I mean, I watch how you cross on the shows you've done, the work you're doing. You speak from a place of comfort. How did you get there? Because what I've seen in my practice, men who are scared to even talk about the sexual abuse, we have a lot of men that live with so much sexual abuse story, and they never shared it with their spouses. I mean, we're starting to understand the impact of adverse childhood experiences now. But how did you get to where you are?
Yeah, so I mean, a big part of my healing was actually EMDR therapy, is what I went through, and that was transformational for me because I had gone through. I started with talk therapy professionally, so one thing I want to stress to people and anybody watching is that the conversation normally doesn't start first with the professional, especially in today's world. For me, it started online, actually, finding kind of just a community, digging, like seeing who else is out there. Is there somebody out there that's been through what I've been through? Is there somebody out there, who can really like walk me through or show me? I didn't understand what therapy is. I didn't know what resources I had available to me. When I had my mental breakdown, my job had given me the resource of EAP. But again, at that point, I had kind of already gone through my own talk therapy. So I started with, going through therapy professionally. That was my first professional experience. And I was kind of like, what am I doing here? This isn't helping me. I gave up for a while.
Yes, it's very common.
I don't need therapy, like they didn't teach me anything I haven't already, thought about or whatever. And so then I'm like, there has to be something else, and then I learned about neuroplasticity. And I'm like, whoa, like this is cool.
That's Wendy's favorite.
Yeah, I love it. It's because we're taught like that your brain, you go through development at a certain age and that's it, like you're done. And it's like, no, like you can develop all throughout life and you can change your patterns and you can change. So when I started to learn about neuroplasticity, I'm like, there has to be something deeper out there for healing then. And so then I found EMDR therapy. And luckily, I had, found somebody locally. There wasn't many. There was actually only 3 here in Kansas because I'm in Kansas, and there's not a lot of mental health practices. And especially that, the forward thinking like EMDR and the cognitive therapies. And so, yeah, that helped me a lot is EMDR therapy. But again, it was more of the online community that really empowered me. I mean, there's people, Mark Mentry as a person that you can find on LinkedIn, who's, you know, a big, you know, just a personality, and he's got a podcast. But this man, you know, he's younger than me, actually. You know, in 2016, episode number 264, I think is what it is.
Wow.
You know, he spoke about mental health. And it was the first time that I saw a man my age, even younger,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
who was talking about it. And I'm like, whoa, like that empowered me, you know? And
Yes.
so all it takes is like one person.
Yes, it ripples.
You know, and that pushed me to then start to share my story online, which for me
Wow.
was therapeutic. You know, I got a lot of therapy in the first, you know, year from it, of creating content and putting myself out there. So yeah, but that online community, anybody watching, lean into your people. For so long, I had only like connected with online with people that I knew personally, that I had met
Definitely.
in person. If I didn't know you in person, I wasn't connecting with you, you know. And even as a young person who grew up in social media, I had that mindset. Only recently did I really seen digital relationships on the same level as in-person relationships. You know,
Yes,
for a
it's
while,
that
if it doesn't start in person, it's
authenticity.
not as real. It can't be as authentic. This, that, and the other. Total
Absolutely.
lie. Like
Yeah.
some of the best relationships that I have now have started online. You
Yes,
know, a really best friend that I have now, I met on LinkedIn, who, you know, he
yes,
happened to live locally. So we met online and now we hang out. And, you know, like it just goes to show you the power of your online community. So use
yes,
what's right for you. If
yes.
you're at the point where you kind of talked about it, you're ready for therapy, step into it. If you're not, find somebody that you trust, find somebody that you don't even know. Sometimes it's easier to open up to people that we
Absolutely.
don't know. You know, and so yeah.
Thank you so much. I know that you touched a little bit on causes of depression. I would like you to also mention other things, because I don't want our viewers to just think that it's only trauma. I would like you to also touch on the other medical perspective, you know, because some people, they underestimate having trauma having depression due to maybe the chronic illness that you had.
Yes, yes. Well, that is. We could talk about that for a whole hour. You know, that's the other baggage that comes with long-standing physical health problems, the cancers, the diabetes, the hypertension. Yes, people tend to come to a place whereby they just feel hopeless, and they probably can't see hope, and it could tilt them into experiencing symptoms of depression. So it is very, very important to know that long-term physical health conditions can also be a triggering factor for episodes of depression. But I also want to highlight that people should not take whatever we've said in isolation. It's important to have been medically checked out so that you cleared medically. For example, your blood levels. If people have low blood levels, they could be lethargic and feel low. If you have impaired thyroid functions as well, it could give you symptoms that could mimic that of depression. So it's important that people don't take things in isolation. If you're experiencing any of these symptoms, you present to a doctor, they check you out, and then with good clinical history, then they might be able to come to an appropriate diagnosis, and you will get the help that you require. The good thing that there are loads of help available, and apart from this as well, there are a lot of things people could do. And Miguel has clearly stated a few options, and exercise, diet, and all these are contributory factors that will help people live achieve a better emotional and mental well-being. Wendy, you wanted to comment on something?
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I was just going to say, I totally agree with you. I actually, with our clients, I will ask them to go see a physician first, and to find out if there's any other physical problems. Like, is it something else? Because I'm basing it on what they're saying at that point, but I want that other opinion. And then if the doctor decides that they need antidepressants, then they will go on that. And the most effective form of treatment for depression, we know, is therapy plus antidepressants, right?
Yes.
So then you can begin that process, but I won't begin that process till they've seen their doctor.
I love it. Thank you so much, Wendy. Dr. Sola, do you want to tell us more about the options people have to treat depression?
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Onati. In the UK here, we follow the NICE guidelines, which is what we follow here. And the first option is to offer psychological intervention, especially for the younger age group. You don't want to start loading them with medication and things like that. So it's important you give them that space to be able to talk through things, identify their emotions, deal with traumas or whatever could be the triggering factors. So psychological intervention, they are very, very effective. So that is most times the first line. But at the back of my mind, I'm also thinking about risk. So when you're thinking of, you want to manage risk as well. So sometimes a doctor might think, oh, medication is the most appropriate initial step. But on the whole, the holistic view and the robust is to have that conversation with your clinician, and then psychology will be offered. And if medication is indicated, then you have this conversation. There are loads of very, very good medications, and you talk about it with your profile. Hopefully, you'll be able to get one that works for you. And then combination of psychology and pharmacology is a very, very good. We have good results, and yes, people can. The good thing here is that people can live a normal life and function to the best of their ability. So I don't want people to go away and thinking that, oh, once I'm depressed, that means I'm gonna. No, we can talk from now till next year about the economic effects of depression, the disability, how it affects income, how it affects all employment and all this. But we need to talk about the other side as well. That if you're on appropriate treatment and you have appropriate support, family, friends, and proper network around you, you can live a very good life and function to the best of your God-given abilities.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sola. You know what? The time is coming to an end, but before we do that, Miguel, do you want to share with us, did you experience any stigma, any pushback from other men? And even from other women, actually, we do see that.
It's been so crazy that you asked that, because it's not something that I talk about often, because it's just something that I don't want to. And it's so I'm seeing it the wrong way too, because if I really believe in God the way I say I do, I shouldn't be afraid of like cursing it, but I haven't. It's been so crazy, like one of the biggest things that kept me from talking about it was that fear of being stigmatized and being trolled, and being told that I was seeking attention, and whatever I saw everybody else who talked about it happen to. And I read this book at the beginning of this year. It's called The Go-Giver. I recommend everybody read it, by Bob Berg. And at one point he says, you get what you expect. And like having that perspective and social media of just expecting love, expecting embracement, expecting vulnerability, expecting abundance, expecting people to open up. I can't tell you, I mean, just last week I had a gentleman who's an executive at a company, who, leads hundreds of people, reached out to me and said, Miguel, and he had never spoken to me before. Okay. And he said, I've been following you for a while now. And he said, I hadn't, ever reached out to you, but I wanted you to know that I just got, I went to the doctor and I was diagnosed bipolar. And he's like, thank you. Your content helped me go to therapy and go.
Thank you so much, Miguel.
And it's just,
I have goosebumps.
Yeah, like but again, I'm here for a bigger purpose. Like again, I'm here like being led by God. For me, it's a gateway. We can talk about all the therapies and medications, which I've gone through everything, and I advocate for all of it. Just like Sola was saying, like all of that stuff. There's a place for all of it, but without God in my life and at the center, I would have never found what I have now, because I did it for a while without God at the center. And again, I'm just being led differently, and yeah, that's what continues to lead me. And the stigma, I haven't received it because I'm not expecting it. And I'm just putting out my best self, and just loving on people and trying to be the best neighbor that I can. Like Mr. Rogers, that was like one of the only, men that I looked up to in my life, and growing up as a kid. And so, yeah, and the stigma, I've been really blessed, and to just receive a bunch of men, be it privately in my DMs, be it they never, because it's not everybody needs to do it this way that we're doing it. Not everybody needs to do it on social media, but some of us are going to have to do it in order for it to become normal one day.
Yes.
You know?
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for doing what you do. And, you know, you touched an important thing that you're not expecting it. You know, I think that's the most important thing, that you're expecting abundance and love. So once we don't pay attention to those negative naysayers is very fundamental. I'm glad you mentioned that. Before we close, I would like each one of you to leave my viewers with a wonderful word, what they need to look up to look forward to, so that they can start their healing journeys. I know that a lot of people, all of us, at some point in our lives, we've been hurt. And a lot of us, we're going around with these unhealed wounds, and they are showing up in business. They are showing up in our relationships with our spouses, with our children, with our friends. And we've learned to live with these symptoms, and we justify and say, this is how I am. And at the same time, we don't realize the thorns we are producing out there and, you know, repelling people from us. And a lot of times it's from trauma. And I'm glad that Dr. Sola mentioned the other causes of depression. But a lot of times, big chunk of people who are suffering, it's unhealed trauma. So I would like to hear from you, Wendy. Yeah. Just a word, one or two, for our viewers before we close.
Yeah, I was going to say hope. And to me, that healing is so possible. I also have clinical depression, and I wouldn't function today without the interventions.
Wow.
Hope.
I love it.
It can be different. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Dr. Sola, do you have any word?
The last 18 months has shown everybody in the world that we are all vulnerable. Life is happening. A lot of things are going on. My parting words today is that we have to be intentional about our mental well-being. We have to make it priority, and we have to normalize the conversation and around mental health. Put the same priority you put on your physical health, put it on your mental health. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you so much. Miguel?
Yeah, he kind of stole my word. But, right?
I know, I love it. I'm loving this.
Vulnerability, though, empathy, like just be more open. I promise you, like, putting yourself out there and being yourself with people and finding a community is going to really open up a whole new world for you, like it did for me. And I'm not talking about financially. I'm talking about mentally, spiritually, emotionally, relationally, being open and being vulnerable, and then being empathetic, is powerful. And sorry, I know you said just a couple words. Here I am.
You know what? I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it.
Positive
we
intent.
Have 3 minutes, so go on.
I would say assume, 3 words. Assume positive intent, okay? Assume that whatever happens, everybody approaches you with positive intention. Assume positive intent.
Love it. You know what? I am so grateful for this conversation. And I know that I'm going to bring you guys back because it's the first of its kind. And I'm happy that we did it. But just to close our conversation, I just want to encourage our viewers. Thank you so much. I can see people are watching. Thank you so much for watching. And I would like to see you guys back here because these are the conversations we need to have. And mental health is my passion because I'm starting to see a lot of men. I applauded a lot of men in my practice. People are starting to come. Like I said in the beginning, people are seeking help. It's not weakness when you look after your mental health. And actually, vulnerability is part of strengthening and bringing those capabilities you have and also the gifts. Like, look at how Miguel, he started off as he was shy. He never wanted to speak to people he didn't know. Look at how vulnerability and living in his truth did. I'm so proud of you, brother. Keep it up and keep doing what you're doing. I'm so grateful for what you're doing. Thank you so much, Dr. Sola, too, for coming out. You always come through for me. I'm so grateful. And I'm going to bring you back. Wendy, I am so excited to reconnect again. You're just amazing. Thank you so much, guys. And I just want to let our viewers know that our time next week is going to change. It's going to be early. I know that some people are sleeping, and Dr. Sola stayed for us. It's midnight in the UK, and he decided to stay. I'm so grateful he did that. So we're going to change the time next week. And of course, it looks like it's good that this is running for 45 minutes. Initially, I thought 30 minutes, but 45 minutes is fair enough. Thank you so much, guys. And thank you so much to our viewers. Please come back. We're going to change the time, and I'm going to let everybody know. We're going to send it out to all the spaces. Thank you so much. God bless, and enjoy your weekend.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.